Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is part 4 of our lecture about real statistics and Islamic approach. This is a new course based on a new concept of what statistics is all about. And basically, we argue that conventional statistics involves a lot of deception. So in this portion, the fourth part of the lecture, I will explain how this deception is done. And basically, it happens because we create an illusion of objectivity. We compare two numbers, 4 and 6, and we say that 6 is bigger than 4, and that's objective. But actually what is happening is that you are saying something deeper, and that deeper thing about the real world is not objective, but it is made to appear as objective. So when we look at numbers, like X has 2 publications, Y has 1, X has IQ 125, Y has 110, somebody scored 750, others scored 600. So it's obvious that these comparisons are objective. There is no question that 125 is bigger than 110. So on that surface, when you look at the observation, 2 publications are more than 1. But if you translate this into the real world, you're trying to say that X is more intelligent than Y. Now there, this same comparison is no longer valid. So something which we're trying to do, which is subjective and qualitative and requires value judgments of all sorts, is converted into an objective judgment about measuring two numbers. So how this is done? This is because of differences in epistemology, differences in the theory of knowledge. So the Western methodology, which is conventional statistical methodology, currently used all over the world, is represented in this diagram. So on the one hand, we have the hidden reality, which nobody can see. The hidden reality is manifested in some observable things. For example, I have a hidden preference in my heart, but when I make a choice between two objects, like choosing between a banana and apple, then my hidden preference of the heart will be manifested in the choice if I pick a banana. Now, when you have all of these choices that I'm making, then I can often put numbers on these choices. The utility function is a way to measure put a number on the strength of my preference. So this becomes quantified. Now the statistical analysis deals only with the numbers. So there is a conventional methodology creates a separation. On the one hand, there is the applied part which deals with the reality and with the manifestation. And then the issue of how the manifestation is measured, this is sometimes a part of statistics and sometimes it is not. But mainly the part is that once you get the numbers, how you analyze them, that is the theoretical part of statistics. So the theoretical domain is split from the applied. Now in Islamic methodology, we reject this separation. We say that these things cannot be separated. So at the same time, we look at the hidden reality, we look at the manifestations, we look at how these manifestations are being measured, and the analysis must concern all three of these at the same time. And in fact, one of the key differences is that ultimately what we are trying to say is something about the hidden reality. We're not trying to talk about the numbers. Whereas conventional statistical analysis is confined to something you can say about the numbers, because that part is objective. So what happens is that you make an objective statement, but then you translate it to the reality. You look at a correlation and then you say that this is a causation without making any arguments about it. So we say that no, we observe a correlation. Does it translate into a causation or not? That is the key question. The correlation is just an accident. So in Islamic methodology, we are trying to learn about the hidden reality. We're not really trying to learn about the numbers. The numbers are a means to the end. In conventional methodology, the numbers are the end in themselves. science is actually the process of learning about the hidden reality by observing the manifestations of it. So the most simple and clear example is that we look at the world, the universe, and the miracles of creation, and we recognize our creator, the God. So this involves learning to reason from how the Quran teaches us to reason, not from following Western logicians. Now, for reasons that are complex, and I have discussed elsewhere, Western epistemology rejects the unseen. It looks at only the observable manifestations. It says that whether there is some hidden reality behind it or not, we cannot tell, and therefore it's not relevant for science. Whereas the Quran starts with those who believe in the unseen, the people with taqwa. Those who are God conscious are those who believe in the unseen. So there's a direct contradiction between what Western epistemology deals with and what Islamic epistemology teaches us. Now, this is a deep and complex topic, but I will briefly point out what I have called Kant's blunder. And it seems like a logical point which he puts forth. He says that, okay, there is something, there is a hidden reality, but we can never know what it is like. We can only know what we observe. So instead of talking about things we cannot know about, let us confine our attention to the observations. So actually, this is a mistake, because all the time we are dealing with things about which we cannot achieve certainty. Our life is built around feelings of others which we cannot observe, and feelings of ourselves which we are imperfect observers of. So nonetheless, even though these things are unobservables, they are the central elements of human lives. So we have a lifetime experience dealing with unobservables. But what Kant says is that just ignore all unobservables. That reduces us only to the surface manifestation, what we can see, and prevents us from talking about the hidden realities. So there is a historical note about how this mistake happened, and I will bypass this in this talk. There is a reference to the issues in the written write-up, and a book about it by Raju called Is Science Western in Origin, and I will let you read it from there. But very important to understand is that what the West says is that the science was their invention, but actually they imported from the Islamic civilization via Andalus, which had an advanced civilization. And even though they took the application of science and they advanced it extremely, they never actually understood the methodology of science. So Bacon made a mistake of thinking that it is induction. Descartes thought it was deduction. The truth that is abduction, which means reasoning from the seen to the unseen, was discovered by some of their philosophers, but it never became widely accepted. So basically today, social sciences, statistics, econometrics, they are all based on a misunderstanding of science. That's why it's important to understand. And that's why, because the foundations of these subjects, statistics, econometrics, and social science, these are wrong. So the building which has been constructed on these foundations is actually deeply flawed and needs to be destroyed and reconstructed on sound foundations. In order to do this, we have to reject the split between the theory and the applied. We have to reject Kant's blunder, which means that we must think about the hidden reality, even though we cannot see it. And just to explain this in very concrete and specific details as to what it means in real-world applications, suppose that we find that in some district income has gone up by 20%, so progress has taken place. So we find that we took a random sample and we found the average income in the sample was 5,000 rupees in 2015, and in 2016 we found it was 6,000. So we have a 20% increase. That is something perfectly objective we can say about the numbers, and that is the end of our job, because all we do is we analyze the numbers. But as an Islamic statistician, we cannot stop here. We must go beyond this. We must understand what these numbers are, where they come from, and why we are talking about this 20% increase. So we must look at who is making this argument, why he is making this argument. If this is a politician who wants to justify the success of his policies, then we want to look at what these policies were and if they actually have any effect on incomes in the village. Were they beneficial or were they harmful? Should we oppose them or should we support them? So in all cases, we have to go beyond the numbers to the reality which generated these numbers. So there are two ways to do this. One is to look at the narrow focus, just look at the numbers themselves, look at the random sample, and maybe the random sample was 100 people, and 99 of them had rupees 1,000 income, and one of them was a big landlord with income of 400,000. So total income was about 500,000 and average income was 5,000. In this example, the 5,000 average doesn't represent anybody. It is 5 times more than 1,000, so it doesn't represent the poor people, and it is huge amount less than the rich person. So this average is highly misleading. Similarly, when we say 20% growth, it might be that 99 poor people had their income halved, but the rich man income doubled, and that would create huge growth, but actually most people have become poorer. And similarly, there are many other realities hidden behind the numbers which can lead to opposite conclusions from what the numbers themselves are saying. So the main point of this whole discussion is that we cannot stop by analyzing the numbers. We have to go beyond the numbers into the reality which generated the numbers. But even more importantly, we need to expand the focus. We need to move beyond the income. We need to ask, why are we measuring incomes? Why we are talking about 20% growth in GNP? So if we look at that, we find that economists say that this is the measure of prosperity. And in fact, the statistician says, well, that's the job of the field expert. The economist is supposed to tell us what prosperity is. But the Islamic statistician cannot bifurcate this job, that somebody else does the job of assessing prosperity and we just look at the numbers. We must understand and participate in this debate. In the Islamic vision, all parties to the transaction are equally guilty in a transaction involving interest. So if we touch the numbers, then we become involved in the whole debate, and we cannot afford to set aside this debate. So we must ask the question, is it a correct measure of prosperity? So here what Mahbubul Haq experienced is a very perfect illustration of what I am trying to say here. So I will go into this in a little bit greater detail. Mahbubul Haq started out as an economist. He was trained in Harvard and he came to believe in this GNP per capita, and he implemented this policy, and he realized that this target favors the rich and it doesn't worry about income distribution. And it can be the case that the wealth concentrates in the hands of the rich and the poor's condition is not made better off. So he said that the way to counter this is to develop the Human Development Index, which he did. And the human development, he added education and health, life expectancy, in order to create some criteria which would give some weight to what is happening to the poor. He recognized that this was not a perfect solution. In fact, more consideration was possible, but he was aware that this is a debate, this is a battle in which he made the change small enough so that it would be digestible, it would be acceptable to the mainstream. and he was tremendously successful in changing the development discourse. So his was a rhetorical strategy. He took a statistic, he opposed it with another statistic which was a measure of development, and he managed to get it accepted worldwide. This has had a dramatic impact on lives of millions of people. So we can summarize all this discussion by saying that arguments are always about real world issues, and when you take a statistics, it's never value neutral. If you are measuring something, if you're spending time and effort to measure something, then it means something to somebody. Somebody wants to use that number to make some argument. Now the statistician cannot afford to be blind to what the numbers are being used for. Now the Western epistemology says that no, the statistician can analyze numbers in isolation, and the field expert can do the bigger picture. But we say that no, we cannot split the applied and the theoretical. We cannot differentiate between the real unobservables and the observable manifestations. We have to look at both of them together, and we cannot differentiate between objective and subjective, because things that we call as objective were chosen subjectively. So Islamic statistics heals all of these dualities and splits, and we understand that the arguments that are being made are always about the reality, never about numbers. So the arguments are qualitative, unobservable realities which are not measurables, and often involve values, involve the heart as well as the head. Western theory rejects all of these unifications. So the final words of this lecture are that we have all been mesmerized by the expertise of the West into believing whatever they say. In fact, a lot of what they say is very deceptive, and we have the opportunity today of rejecting this illusion of objectivity and Western wisdom, and building on sound foundations which are provided by the teachings of Islam. So currently I am offering an online course for teachers which started recently. It's called Real Statistics, an Islamic Approach, and course is currently full with 200 students, which is my maximum capacity. There is a wait list which you can sign up for, and if some vacancies open up, we might be able to adjust you. Alternatively, we might be able to offer you the course in a later session. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanallah azim, alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.